Hi, this is Laurie Levin, and this is the fourth and final video in a series of four, plus an introductory video about what I learned at the 68th Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations in New York City, March of this year. I've called this video series, "The Cost of Being a Woman is Too High." I hope by now you've come to understand why this is painfully true and the impact it has on all of us, no matter the country we live in. We all pay this cost, and so we are all part of the solution to end those payments. The four videos that I've recorded are these. The first video, constitutionally unequal. Video 2, economically unequal. Video 3 focuses on gender-based violence. And this fourth video is about freedom. So let's address freedom in this video. Another cost of being female in the world, and nowhere in the world demonstrates this more than Afghanistan. I attended two events at the UN Commission on the Status of Women. The first one was called Afghan Journalists Under the Taliban, extraordinary event featuring Afghan journalists who actually had fled Afghanistan the day the Taliban took over, August 2021. The second event was called No Poverty Eradication Without the Empowerment of Women and Girls, Next Steps for the Future of Afghanistan. It is so important that we not forget the girls and women of Afghanistan. And so I put it at the top of each slide in this video to bring that point home. When any of us are held back, collectively, we all are. And it doesn't get much worse than Afghanistan. Over 1,400 women journalists operated before the Taliban takeover August of 2021. There are only 500 today. Now, the good news is there was 400 closer to the time the Taliban took over due to the Taliban taking over. Today, that has increased to 500. Little bit of good news. However, they face harassment and discrimination. Many journalists have fallen into poverty, and it's very dangerous today for female journalists. You know, there are no female role models for these women because women have been erased from the public sphere. Some continue to push for change, some of the journalists. However, they cannot leave home for work without a male guardian. They can't go to work. Clothes are chosen by the Taliban. Girls can't go to school past sixth grade, and universities are closed to women. This picture is interesting because it shows the freedom of movement for Afghan women before 2021, where you see women in all these public spheres. This is after August 21 in the middle, where you see a tremendous decrease in the number of women publicly. And then the last triangle here to the right is the future that they fear. And that is that they are totally erased for years to come. So what can we do to support women journalists in Afghanistan? Again, this is coming firsthand from the journalists who fled Afghanistan the day the Taliban took over because they knew they were on the target list. They need online education. They need financial and technical support. They need jobs from home, but they don't want this long term. They want to get back into the public sphere. They want their lives back. They need legal support, and they need international support and diplomatic pressure. More domestic violence in the home and forced marriage to keep them safe from the Taliban. So as we continue on here, this is the next event that I went to, and they spoke about how domestic violence has increased so dramatically since the Taliban has taken over. And because it's not safe to go outside, the women are really locked in a prison. And if you've got an abusive partner at home, there's no place to go but stay in that abusive environment, because outside you're not safe, nor are you safe inside. Some are taken forcefully from their home because the Taliban said that they weren't wearing the hijab. This can be reported by a neighbor if they're upset with you. Anybody can make that claim, and here comes the Taliban. They need support for their mental well-being. Their mental well-being is so on the decline. Poverty will not be eradicated without girls and women. And they need expansion for scholarships from the international community. And these were asked from the panelists from this event. International community, they said, please facilitate opportunities for women to meet directly with the Taliban. Link aid to better positions for girls and women. We should not recognize the Taliban until this ends. Invest in skills enhancement for girls and women. Make sure that women's rights are not traded off in negotiations, which so often happens all around the world. It's happened in the United States many times over. Make sure that 30% of all funding is targeted to women's rights. Expand scholarships for Afghan women. Interesting, because women can continue to work in education and the medical fields because the Taliban wants only women with women caring for women. That's a very strict code there. So there are scholarships that will provide women the opportunity to continue higher level education in those fields. They need long-term loans with proper mentorship and coaching. This was an extraordinary event that I went to. Afghanistan has been named quite recently I believe after I got back in March, or at least that's when I read this. They'd been named the unhappiest country in the world. No surprise there. They are the worst economy in the world. No surprise there when 50% of your population is shut down. Poverty in Afghanistan, again, will not be eradicated without girls and women. This is so important to understand. And Mahbouba Siraj is the woman featured in both pictures. And it was extraordinary to see her at this event. I had watched her for a couple years, featured in the news about Afghanistan. I was so mesmerized by her fiery speeches on the news. She is a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. She's a journalist. She's very much at risk. She is part American, and I was told by a journalist that that's why they think she's still alive, because she is part American. She takes tremendous risk in Afghanistan, where she continues to live. And in her fiery speech, where she got a standing ovation at the end, she said, "This is not apartheid. It is so much worse." And I felt corrected, and I was so glad to hear this, because I was thinking this is gender apartheid. And she said, "No, it's not. This is so much worse," because I think a lot of us she was hearing were thinking of it in that way. So I want to share this last slide. I've shared it before. I think it's appropriate to share it once again at the close of this 4-part video series. And it is a quote by Rumi. Rumi was a Persian poet back in the 1300s. And this is a beautiful poem with 2 lines. The first 2 lines are very, very well known. I'll read the entire poem because I think it is so relevant and so important that we be reminded to not fall asleep, to remember the girls and women in Afghanistan, to remember the girls and women around the world. Here we go. Here's the poem. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the 2 worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Imagine Rumi wrote that all those years ago. Isn't that so relevant today? And once again, of course, I always want to share my contact information because I want to stay in touch with you. I hope you'll jump on my website, sign up for my monthly letter called Rise and Shine. It's all about us becoming the people we need to be to create the changes in the world we want to see. There's my website, my email, and my book, Call Me a Woman on Our Way to Equality and Peace, where I share the 7 habits of equality and the habits so many of us of inequality that so many of us continue to live. Awareness, heightened awareness, elevated consciousness. That's where we're heading, and that's what will transform the world. Thank you so much for all your time invested. If you haven't seen any of the prior videos, please go back, check them out, and share. Thank you so much. See you soon.